Hey, this is Dre, and welcome to Pod Save the People. On this episode, we have the live show that we did in New York City with Rembert filling in for Clint, who was unavailable, and Torre, who was the guest, the writer and critic. And the message for this week, before I talk about sort of season 2, is that we need to make sure that we are mindful that the movement grows as we grow, and that we grow as the movement grows, that we will change our perspective and we'll change our access to information and the way we think about issues. It'll just grow like over the years, and like that'll change the way the work looks like. And we can't be afraid of that. We can't run from that. We need to run towards it. That we need to run towards the things that challenge us, run towards our curiosity, run towards the things that scare us, that really push us to commit and to recommit, and the things that help our values become practices. So don't be afraid of the movement growing as you grow. Don't be afraid of growing as the movement grows. This is the work. And I'm also excited to share that we're about to hit the 1-year mark, which is sort of wild. 55 episodes, 3 live shows, and it's all thanks to you, our production team, and the incredible news crew and the collection of guests that we've had this season. We're going to put up some fresh conversations over the next few weeks and come back with the full news crew and a very special surprise guest for our second season, which launches on May 1st. Let's go. Hey, this is DeRay, and welcome to Pod Save the People. And now, the news.
Hey, y'all. What's up, New York City? We finally made it. It's the news. I'm Brittany Packnett at Miss Pacyetti on all social media.
And I'm Sam Sinyangwe at Sam Sway on Twitter.
I'm unfortunately not Clint Smith III. So if you're here for him, just walk out very silently. I'm Rembert Brown at Rembert.
And I'm DeRay at DeRay, D-E-R-A-Y on Twitter.
Really? I had no idea.
So before we do the news, so I like surprises a lot, and I have a surprise for, I love you, Rembert. I just don't have a surprise for you today, but I do have a surprise for Sam and Brittany. It's under their chair. They do not know that there's a surprise under their chair.
What is happening?
But there's a surprise before the news.
Did we all get sparkly shoes too? Yeah!
I'm like, hold on, wait, what?
Oh my God, this is very exciting.
Oh, snap.
Yes! Clink, clink to your shoe, bro. Yeah.
I'm 10 and a half. In case
The thing though is that I didn't know I could call people in their family and be like, I need like 5 minutes, I need a shoe size. Like, don't have a lot of time. Remember, next time.
It's fine.
Next time.
Aw, thank you. That's so sweet. I really have been lusting after those shoes. I'm very happy.
They're very cool. You're welcome.
We all go just come out in these from now on. It's going to be day after day after day. We're going to have the silver.
Yes.
You got the pink.
I got the pink.
You got the
yes.
blue.
Actually.
What's Clint going to have?
Oh, yeah,
Green. They make a green.
Okay.
They make a green.
Is this
okay,
because
cool.
I said one of those?
Don't tell Clint, everybody. This is a secret.
don't
Don't tell Clint that they got shoes.
Yes, don't. Okay. Actually, the shoes are the perfect thing to celebrate today because today is Cardi B Day. All over the world.
Party!
Raise your hand if you know who Cardi B is. I'm kidding.
Please, okay. All right,
We were nervous.
let's start at the beginning. There's a show called Love and Hip Hop.
Hey.
No, Instagram before that.
Yeah, before that, there was
before
Instagram.
that. But most of us got introduced to her on Love and Hip Hop, which I should not be admitting that I watch, but every once in a while. And she was on the show for like 2 seasons and was the breakout star and is a very talented MC. But what I love most about her is that she is proof positive that when you are your authentic self that you can succeed, and she flies in the face of this idea that there is a right way to do things, right?
Yeah.
She was an exotic dancer. She was on a show that everybody says you're not supposed to watch. She was everybody's like, you're gonna have 15 minutes of fame, and she was like, ha, my album already went gold. Right?
Who did that? Was that you? Okay.
My pink shoes. I'm excited about that.
That was good. I like it.
But yes, happy Cardi B Day since
Yep.
we're in New York.
I'm Cardi's #1 fan, secretly, if you don't know. Like, I'm always listening. New album is dope. If you haven't listened to it, please listen to it.
It's already gold.
It's already gold.
Cardi, if you're listening, like, you know, like,
Come be on the pod.
maybe come be on the pod. Like, we have a conversation. Like, I don't know. Don't tell
You all don't
Offset.
understand. Sam will like count off statistical information on fair housing in 1976 and then be like, did you hear that new Cardi? And you're like,
Literally in the group
Okay.
text today, out of nowhere, he's like dropping Cardi lyrics. You're like,
Already.
Sam,
What? Already.
it just came out this morning.
Sam's just annotating on Genius. Just like the new Cardi album. Let me tell you though, I not to brag, but I will brag because I love Cardi. I saw Cardi last night. She had a little listening session. She invited me personally. That's not true. But in the middle of playing her album, something went wrong with the speakers, and she just cut the music and started singing "I Will Always Love You" by Whitney Houston.
No, she didn't.
It was the greatest thing.
Did
It
she
was
really?
Like, it was perfectly off pitch. A little flat. What I call it, a flat Bronx. I love her so much. I love her so much.
Did you like her as much in person? Like, was it the same sort of magic?
She's 10 times more endearing and charming in person. And like the way she like does those selfie videos, and they're just incredible. Like that's how she actually was. She was just on stage, watching everyone take pictures of her, and she just had a lollipop, and she was just walking back and forth, just like, hey, hey, hey. I'm like, you were a perfect celebrity. She's the perfect one.
she kind of is.
I love
she
it.
kind of is. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that I am very happy that is back. You know Bob McNair?
The guy, the owner of, or the coach of the Texans?
No, the owner of the
Texans.
Texans.
Yes.
He's like my favorite old white man.
Because he's like extra racist?
Yeah, he's like wild. Last season, he made this comment that that got him in a little hot water with like the public and some of the other people on the team. He compared like the protests and everything. He said the NFL was turning into like inmates running the prison.
Yeah, y'all remember this?
People didn't
Yeah.
love that, and I don't know, anyway, and then he apologized, kind of hid, went to his like rich place where you hide, and then but out of nowhere this week came back, and I had to write down the quote. He came back, did an interview, and said the main thing I regret about that incident, and it was like a pause. He goes, is apologizing.
Wow.
And let me tell you, that is the firest take I've ever heard. That was incredible. Like I was like, it was so like the audacity of it.
The caucasity
The
of it.
caucasity.
Right. That was good. I'm farther away from you today, so I can't like hit you. But that was good. You making me drop stuff? Lord.
This might be just me, but sometimes when it goes that far on the spectrum, like I want to cry, but I just start laughing because I'm like, yo, you give no cares. Like you will like.
That was a PG-13 podcast. Thank you
heard
for that one.
I was like, you give no.
Thank
But yeah, I'm just like I just want to shout out Bob McNair for just being
For
back,
standing up in his
for just,
racism.
just
Right.
like living your truth.
We like you, Rembrandt. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, 10 and a half. 10 and a half size shoe.
I got you.
So for my news today, we haven't actually talked about Cambridge Analytica on the pod yet. And it felt like kind of a glaring omission at this point, but quite frankly, there's so much happening in the world. It was actually easy to talk about lots of other things for the last few weeks. But when the news of the whistleblower first came out, people were so ready to like anoint him a saint. And they were like, oh my God, let's be so thankful for the whistleblower. And I was like, hold your horses, because I'm not about to just like crown a guy that helped rob entire nations of their democracy with the halo. Like, let's just wait and see what happens. Turns out I was right, as most black women are. And yeah, my first row of black women, you understand.
My first row. Shut up.
Like all black women and Sam and my boyfriends. But it turns out, so he left Cambridge Analytica in 2014. we all thought it was because he had this, clear
Moral
this Jesus
awakening.
moment, this moral awakening, but it was because he was actually trying to use the stolen Facebook data to start his own company.
Wow.
And I was like, well, told y'all so. Right, shocker. I'm just telling you, listen to black women. But that actually wasn't the worst part to me. The worst part to me was that leading up to their participation in Brexit and obviously our election, Cambridge Analytica and this guy, Christopher Wiley, helped manage, if you will, over 200 elections around the entire world. They were involved in 200 elections, including in places like Nigeria, where they encouraged people to run these terribly violent, catastrophic, Islamophobic ads against the candidate who was Muslim, who ended up winning. And also in the country of Kenya, where actually over 100 people were killed in election-related violence because of the kind of vitriol that occurred in that election. And so I bring this up for two reasons. One, we should be very clear that it is the height of caucasity and white privilege that the second that you have a moral awakening after thieving millions of people of their democracy, that we want to anoint you some kind of savior and you expect us to pay you for it.
He was on
you
the
just
cover
wanna
of The
sell a
Guardian.
book, let's be clear. We just need to be clear about what that is. But B, they targeted young democracies on purpose, right? And if we think about how complicated it is for us to be getting out of the situation that we're in right now and for us to recover, I've just been thinking so much about what it's gonna take for these younger democracies to actually find their way through this catastrophe.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. I'm glad we're talking about Cambridge Analytica because the story just keeps getting worse. Not only Cambridge Analytica, but Facebook in general, that whole mess. But at first it was, there's 50 million Americans' data has been stolen. Personal data, your preferences, everything about what you care about, stuff that informs your politics and your approach to the world was stolen. And then we learned it was actually 87 million Americans. So it's like 1 in 4, 1 in 5 Americans. And I bet it was all in the swing states, right? They won't tell us that part, though. And, what's wild about it is even though it's been exposed, there was the whistleblower for his own motives said that this was happening. The data is still out there, right? They didn't delete the file, right? That data exists. It's probably been shared to other groups, right? And the question is, what do we do now that not only Cambridge Analytica, but all of these other, right-wing, racist-aligned groups probably have access to the same people and the same databases of all of our information? And I don't know the answer to that, but it is wild to think that the opposition has all of that. And we over here trying to, collect some emails, sign up to this, 87 million people. How expensive it would be to collect that? It's ridiculous. So, yeah, I don't know how we get out of that. I think the second piece about Nigeria, which was interesting that you said, Brittany, was despite the Islamophobic ads, it still didn't work.
Yeah.
So, what does that say about us, where they tried the same thing and it worked? So I'm gonna just leave that there.
What's wild is I was just I was trying to get through these often dense Cambridge Analytica pieces, and I remembered that 8 years ago, the most stressful thing to me about Facebook was that I needed to untag photos before I applied for a job. I was like, this is why Facebook is going to end me.
And your mom getting on
yeah,
Facebook.
because one day, God, my mom might end up on Facebook one day, but I got to untag these photos, in case I ever get a job. And that's just the Facebook 9.0 that we're at now. It feels like to be of that generation that, basically came into Facebook when Facebook began.
Yeah.
It's just wild to see how it is turned into what it is now, and it's absolutely terrifying.
I'll say two meta moments before I talk about the news. One is that we are never together when we record the news. We always record it on the phone. So it's sort of funny because seeing Sam's face when he talks, I'm like, yes, that's so great. I'm like, oh, look at that Facebook expression. The other thing is we didn't really introduce Rembert. Rembert is an amazing writer who used to write at Grantland.
Rembert has a job.
Yeah,
also.
Rembert had a job. Question mark, I don't know about the job today, but he had a great job. And he's done a lot of great writing. When I think about Facebook, we met with Sheryl Sandberg. All of us were there.
Yeah.
We met with Sheryl. I'm so. What? Sorry, he wasn't there.
Keep going.
Oh, what?
she's far away from me today, so I can't hit her. Remember Cheryl? And Cheryl was interesting because we're like, do you think Facebook influenced the election? She's like, no. And we're like, okay. And then she's like, literally,
Next
this
question.
is like, and then she goes, we registered more people to vote than both political parties. And we're like, did Facebook influence the election? She's like, no. You're like, okay, Cheryl. And then we're like, Cheryl, what are we going to do about their private Instagram accounts and their private Facebook groups that are hate accounts? We know it, right?
Did she say no? Is that just her only answer?
Right. That's what it felt like. She goes, DeRay, we're going to make artificial intelligence is going to fix those. And we're like, girl, when? Right? Like, when?
And also, I don't really trust artificial intelligence like you do. Yeah.
Y'all using data to do a whole lot of things. Get somebody to hack into them accounts, right? Like, y'all doing all this other stuff, giving away all our phone numbers. Somebody needs to go shut down, like, the white supremacist Instagram account. But what did get announced today, there are two things. One is that big Facebook groups, we don't know what the number looks like now, but large Facebook groups, whoever moderates it will have to show their identity. That is a new thing. Like, they'll have to upload like government ID or something, so that's sort of new. And the second thing is that it came out, and we also don't talk about the news before we talk about it for the podcast. So no clue what you guys think, but I'm interested. Mark, did you hear that Mark Zuckerberg had the ability to unsend messages in Facebook Messenger? That was like sort of the big news today. Is that nobody else has that power, but like people at Facebook leaked that like he can actually go into the Messenger and just like take the messages back, which is not a power that anybody else has.
But we can't even get an edit button on Twitter. Look at this.
Right.
Look at this.
Two different companies, Brittany. Two different companies.
I'm just saying technology. We have the technology.
I'm just saying technology.
The internet.
So Mark is trying to like explain away the fact that so what they subsequently said is that this was like after the Hollywood emails leaked, they needed like an extra, this was like what their attempt was. And you're like, I don't even know what that means. This is Facebook Messenger. That has nothing to do with them Hollywood emails leaking. But yeah, Mark Zuckerberg can go in and he can like erase and unsend messages in Facebook Message. That was like the big news today.
The whole thing is scary. I think I was looking last night at where they actually categorize you in your account. So, if you go and make a Facebook ad, you can pick the categories for your target audience, and it keeps all of this information on us, including what they presume to be our political ideology. So I was stunned by that. I didn't even know about the
And
messages.
They keep too, Sam, I'm not making this up, right? But they keep, because Sam's like the check.
This is what I'm about to say, and like he's about to steal it. So.
Oh, go. It's better from you. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that they keep records of your calls, right? So if you have Facebook Messenger installed on your phone, is that what you're going to say?
No, but that's good too. Go ahead.
Yeah, so they keep records on your calls. So I went into Facebook. You can actually download all of your user data, which like they don't tell you can do all of this stuff or like what they're doing. You just sort of sign up, create an account, and you go with it. And so I downloaded all my user data. It had everyone I had ever called on my cell phone going back like years. Like I found old people's phone numbers that I didn't have anymore, which was cool. But like,
like thank you, Facebook.
But yeah, like I didn't know that they were tracking this. And it's incredible the amount of data that they have on you. Not just Facebook, but like all of the different apps that we use and platforms, and the fact that we're not really aware of what they're keeping, how it's being used, how we're being targeted, content, whether it's commercial ads or political ads or what have you. And I think all of that needs to be addressed. Like we should have some sort of transparency about that. We should have some sort of control over what can be shared, how they use that data, and currently that's not the case.
So, just a quick question. Like at this point, like 2018, how do you still use Facebook? Like to what extent do you still use it? Like it's just like we're in this moment now where like people are like
the birthday email is really important. So when I see that email, I'm like, am I calling anybody to say happy birthday? That's how I use it. But it is. That's like
I love how that's like the exchange. It's like I'll give you all of my information forever, but I just really in return, I just want to know when it's people's birthday.
Really?
So
It's kind of the email this morning. I didn't call none of them people. I was like, is it? Nope.
Are you one of those people who now just kind of spams the list and you're like HBD, HBD, HBD?
No,
those people are the worst.
People like think I'm always really busy anyway, so they are okay.
They don't expect you.
But I look at it every morning and I'm like, am I calling any of these people? Today was not a day for that. But I appreciate that. That is a good service.
Yeah, I mean, like, if it wasn't for... it is a good service. Thank you, Mark Zuckerberg. If it wasn't for, like, passwords, at this point. Just like I've forgotten every password to every single thing. Like the fact that it says like connect via Facebook. That's probably
real.
95% of the way the reason I use Facebook.
And that's half of how all of this information is
yeah,
shared.
it's incredible. Like the other 5% are like my mom's high school classmates sending me like fake news about Farrakhan or something. Like it's like I'm like, what is this place for me anymore? Like as a journalist, like I used to use it almost primarily to promote the stuff I wrote to the people who didn't use Twitter.
Yeah.
But at this point, I'm like, I don't really care that much anymore.
What I was going to say is that they actually keep a log of everything you type in the, what's that box called?
The search box?
No, like the
box
The
on
status
top.
bar?
Yeah, like that box.
Yeah.
They keep a log of that. I feel like I'm like 80 years old. I'm like, that box on Facebook. But that box, they keep a log of everything you type, whether you actually post it or not. That like Facebook actually has a record of it. See?
Okay, all right. Call the whole thing off. It's over.
You know, at like 2 a.m, like you're just like, I'm really mad. Like I'm gonna type. Wait, let me delete
take it
that.
back.
Yeah, they have that. They have that.
Yeah, they have it. That is sort of frightening too.
Hey, you're listening to Pod Save the People. Don't go anywhere. There's more to come.
Hey, DeRay, how is that Casper mattress working out for you? We haven't talked about it in a while.
So it's sort of incredible how they put that big mattress into like such a relatively small box. I was skeptical, and then I got it. I was like, wow, this is awesome. And it is magical. It's like sort of magical to sleep on. I didn't realize how bad my bed had been until I got the Casper mattress. It's the original mattress, and it has memory foam, which I'd only really like seen on TV. I had never had, but it's breathable. It like is the perfect amount of sink and bounce. It's great.
That's awesome. I love getting your anecdotal review. And then we know Casper has over 20,000 reviews online, 4.8 stars across all the major platforms, Amazon, Google. It's like the internet's favorite mattress. And you have the original, but they also offer 2 other mattresses, the Wave and the Essential. The Wave features a patent-pending premium support system to mirror the natural shape of your body. So I love that it's for all shapes and sizes. The Essential has a streamlined design at a price that won't keep you up at night.
And they're affordable prices because they cut out the middleman and they sell directly to you. It's literally delivered right to your doorstep. You know, I had never thought about like getting a mattress like in the mail, but I got one in the mail and it came, and it like is really in one of those like, how do they do that boxes. It was incredible.
That's awesome. You can be sure of your purchase with Casper's 100-night risk-free sleep on it trial. Get $50 towards select mattresses by visiting casper.com/DeRay and using DeRay at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
That's $50 off select mattresses by visiting casper.com/DeRay and using DeRay, DERAY, at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
Can I segue into more evil?
Sure.
Let's
Good
go.
news. I feel like I have like a
That's what
really,
I'm here for.
I have a really good. So I'm just gonna read a tweet from today from Governor Rick Snyder of Michigan.
I heard it around her too.
Data has shown Flint's water is testing the same as or better than similar cities across the state. Therefore, the remaining 4 distribution centers will close and deliveries will end once the current supply of state-funded bottled water is exhausted.
Wow.
So basically, once that's up, they're not giving bottled water to the residents of Flint. And they basically are using like the easiest way to get out of giving them water. Like the issue is the pipes.
Yes.
The pipes have not been replaced. The pipes are still a mess. But even though the water quality has slightly improved to reach levels of other cities that are also struggling,
Yes.
he's like, okay, we're done. Which just like to me, it's one of those things where you're just like, how obvious does one have to be? Like you're not even hiding it anymore. Like that's not, and for like to see that as a resident of Flint, like what everyone knows, like there's no reason to trust this government at all because the entire thing is like they were purposely lied to. So that happened today.
Yeah, just a couple of
Couple
like
hours
an hour
ago, yeah.
before we came on. So here are the technicalities of it, and we've talked about this on the pod. Essentially, as you were saying, the issue is the pipes. So the water is now up to EPA standards on the amount of lead and copper in the water, but it's still not safe to drink because 20,000 pipes have to be replaced in the city. The goal by the end of 2018 is to replace 6,000 pipes. So just think about the fact that there will, if they're on track, and clearly this is not a place where infrastructure is very strong, if they're on track by the end of 2018, they'll still need to replace replace 14,000 pipes, but there will be no more bottled water given out if it is run out. The other thing that we know is that 3,000 areas in the US tested to have double as much lead as Flint at the height of the controversy. So at Flint at its worst was half as bad as 3,000 other places in the country. So when you say we're testing better than these other places, it's like, so basically you're telling me it's not sludge? Like, is that really the standard that we're going by? The other problem here, and I heard this said by a water activist actually from Flint when I was in Detroit the last time I was there, she said, capitalism has convinced us that water should be something that we pay for. That like you can bottle it and you can box it up and you can actually sell to people what should be free. And I was like, dag, you are absolutely, I mean, thanks for this, thank you for the refreshments. But this idea, right, that what people should have access to, whether it is in Flint, whether it is at Standing Rock, this thing that we should have access to, that we all need to live, is something that comes either at a cost or through some kind of government barrier or red tape, is exactly the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much everything's been said on this, but the last thing is just, I think it's so telling that the comment was, it's cool because all of these other places are equally as messed up. It was not like we're going to set a goal that people actually have drinkable water. It was just, we just want to make sure that people have as undrinkable water as similar areas in Michigan. And as you said, Brittany, 3,000 places across the country have water that is worse. So like that actually doesn't mean anything as a standard. It doesn't mean anything from a point of view of data. It just really means that it's a way of getting around the fact that folks are going to have undrinkable water and the governor really doesn't care anymore. And I think that that's evil.
What I'll say about the human impact of this is that the problem in Flint was lead, and there's no cure for lead. It always shocks me when people talk about lead and like don't talk about the fact that there's no cure. So kids that are poisoned by lead, there is no cure. There's no cure for lead. That should always be your top line, no cure for lead. So kids that get exposed, we know that it leads to learning disabilities later in life. So the most important thing to happen the moment we think exposure has taken place is to test kids. So there is a crisis in Flint around testing. That like the government is not testing all the kids. So there's a lawsuit to force the government right now to test every single kid. That's one part. The second part is that in Flint, it's one of the biggest declines in third grade literacy that we've ever tested ever. So if you test a kid sort of before and then after, it's like over a 30% decline in literacy. It's like you can actually see, it's not normally the learning effects of lead are things that we see sort of at the generation level, like you sort of see kids as they go sort of all the way through school, but it's so concentrated because exposure was so concentrated itself that you can actually see and chart the learning loss right now. Like that is crazy. Top line, no cure for lead, no cure for lead. Like that's why this really matters. It's not like you get exposed and then like you go to the hospital and you drink that thing and like everything's okay. No cure for lead.
So my piece of news is about Harvard. So a group of Asian American students called, I think it's Students for Fair Admissions, sued Harvard University saying that they had an unconstitutional admissions practice that was discriminating against Asian American students who were, as a group, higher performing, and therefore they were not able to get in because preference was given to other people of color. And that was the argument that was made. This group, by the way, is led by Edward Blum, who is the guy who represented Abigail Fisher, Stay Mad Abby, in University of Texas.
I forgot about Stay Mad Abby.
Yeah. Which they lost. So I guess his strategy was like, now he's like, maybe we can shift this up and we'll take this case and it might be a little bit different, who knows. The thing that's interesting about it is that the argument that they're making is that they're discriminating against Asian students because they're allowing black and brown students to get in, and that's like the crime here, right? And what's wild about Harvard, and not just Harvard.
Is that really the argument?
Yeah, the argument is that they are biased against Asian American students with higher test scores and allowing black and brown students to get in who have lower test scores. Is like the argument. That like test scores somehow are the only way that we're evaluating students and your capacity and potential to learn and be incredible. The thing that's interesting about the argument, though, is that if you actually look at the data, what you find is that in Harvard, you get legacy preferences. So you're 3 times more likely to be admitted if you're a legacy student. Legacy students, meaning they define it by having 1 parent or 2 parents that went to Harvard. 18% of the recently admitted class in Harvard got legacy preferences. 93% of students who get legacy preferences at Harvard are white, which means 17% of the incoming class at Harvard this year were white students who benefited from preferences because of the fact that they had parents who went to Harvard. The entire class of black students that year was 14.6%. So there were more white students benefiting from legacy admissions, not because they came from disadvantaged communities, not because they faced hardship in getting to Harvard, not because they had a richer arrangement of life experiences and challenges that they could bring to the table in conversations around diversity. No, not because of any of that, because they had a parent that just happened to be privileged also, so they get a privilege too. And none of the arguments brought forward were challenging legacy preferences. They chose to challenge the fact that there were black students, black and brown students at Harvard that got in, and somehow that was like the issue, and we're just gonna leave legacy alone. And this is not only a Harvard issue. If you look across elite institutions across the country, that tends to be the norm. There tends to be more white students accepted on legacy preferences than the entire black student body. So I'm gonna just leave that out there and let's think about it. But that's what's going on.
Drop the Sharpie. But this is one of the greatest lies that the devil ever told, that people of color should be in competition with one another. And I say this all the time because white supremacy and oppression functions in such a way that it convinces people of color to fight over dinner scraps while white folks are feasting in the other room. And I'm like, this is not where the struggle is, right? And I'm certainly disturbed by the source of this, right? Because, if you standing up with Abigail Fisher, I've got questions about whether or not you really are committed to the uplift of people of color. Like, I just have suspicions. Just a few.
I like it.
And I experienced something similar to this when I was an undergrad. I went to Washington University in St. Louis. I got a full ride, which meant that as soon as that package came through, my mom was like, that's where you're going to school.
Right.
But my scholars program was named for John B. Irvin, who was the first black dean at WashU. And it was the John B. Irvin Scholars Program for Black Americans at the time. We also had the Anika Rodriguez Scholars Program for Latinx Americans. We had lots of scholarships, also, different preferences and all the kinds of things that you're talking about, Sam. But there was an organization that had the phrase civil rights in their name that was literally going around to schools with race-based scholarship programs, threatening to sue them if they continued. And I was like, how dare you just spit on the legacy of civil rights and call this actually what you're doing? So the source really does matter. And we've since had to change the program because otherwise we were gonna lose federal funding. Like, all of these things were very real and it happened at other schools. The other thing that I wanna point out though, just to be very clear, is that the model minority myth is very damaging to Asian American Pacific Islander communities because when you actually look at the hundreds of nationalities and languages spoken, we are not experiencing high achievement all across the board. So if you talk to Asian American and Pacific Islander activists, they talk about the importance of data disaggregation. Because if you don't tease out the ethnic and nationality data, then you're actually just going to think that all Asian American Pacific Islander people are doing well, and that's just not true. And so there are lots of sides to this thing, but I just wanted to make sure that that's very clear. Like, we're in New York City. Actually, the highest rate of poverty is in this city are in Asian American Pacific Islander communities, which a lot of people don't know. And so it's important for me to say that as a black woman and actually try to exhibit the solidarity that I want people to have with me, because I just don't believe in people of color fighting each other when we got a much bigger fight in front of us.
Preach.
I mean, I was gonna say verbatim the same thing. You said it all. Like, I think
we're gonna invite you back one day. We like Remember.
I think if there's one thing that I have found myself having kind of a 180 in terms of the way I see the world in the past 18 months or so, is I used to think of the world very black and white. I think like a product of being from a city like Atlanta that, through my lens was just like there are a bunch of black people and there's some white people and that's it. I think in the past, since the election, a lot of my thinking has gone into the direction of like, every type of disadvantaged group needs to be focused on a common, a common group that has been ruining, messing with all of our lives in different ways, and we all have our own like our own list of demands and our own list of things that need to be fixed. But when it comes down to it, like there's enough history to prove that each one of us operating in a silo trying to get stuff fixed on our own, like, might not work. You know, we kind of got to get on the same page. So yeah, I mean, like, I think there's like with a study like that, it's like we're not focused. Like y'all need to, like, what you're bringing up, there's some validity to it, but like, don't forget who we actually need to be thinking about.
I will say too, this makes me think about, we're doing a big project right now on the racial wealth gap that we haven't launched yet, but we'll launch soon, hopefully. And it's interesting because when we talk to experts about the wealth gap, they get it. They know the difference between income and wealth. Income is like money you make today. Wealth is sort of the total sum of all the things you own. Wealth is, the easy way that we think about it is like, income is money you can spend today. Wealth is money you can spend in the future, right? That's sort of our simple way to think about it. So they know that, and then they know that the single biggest asset that people own is a house. So like home ownership is one of the biggest drivers of whether people have wealth or not. We talk to non-experts, almost immediately people say one of two things. Either they say small businesses, which is sort of fine-ish, or they say education. And it's so interesting because people really do believe that education is this like thing that like closes every sort of gap. And education does a lot of important things. We were both teachers. Clint's a teacher. So we believe in education. Education doesn't close the wealth gap, but it has sort of like a negligible impact on wealth. And the reason that it doesn't really have an impact on wealth is because racism is just so strong. So what we find in the data is that white high school dropouts have more wealth than black college graduates. That like the positive effects are actually just wiped out because of racism. So when we think about some of the solutions, it is about how do we ask the questions deeper and like tease it just a little deeper, because people's gut is like not always what is right. Even, Clint on one of the early podcasts talked about Ban the Box. And Ban the Box across the country was the effort to make sure that on job applications, there was not a box that said that like you had been convicted of a crime before. And black people, when the first studies that came out showed that black people actually did worse in the workplace after we banned the box. And you're like, well, why are they doing worse? Because we banned the box. And instead of just assuming that those black people who checked the box were criminals, they just assumed that everybody was a criminal. And you're like, well, it's like you see like even the best policy run up against straight up racism. So this is about how do we name it so that people know where the fight is. Now my news, I was going to talk about Wisconsin, but I think because I'm upset. Remember, this will be new for you, sorry. We put the news in a group chat and I'm changing my news on stage, which is not fair to remember. It's wild. So I'm going to ask you to...
You think just because you gave us some free shoes, this is okay?
I know, but you'll be ready. Just wait. So to the person next to you, I want you to tell them something you can buy for more than $200 right now. The person next to you.
Them shoes.
You already know what this is going to be. Okay. Tell him what it is.
What you can buy?
Okay.
Avocados.
Avocado toast. For $200?
Okay, bring it back in 5, 4,
$200.
3,
Jordan's like,
2,
yeah, let's do that.
1. Okay, now tell the person next to you something you can buy for more than $300 right now.
An iPad.
Why are you so loud?
He's so loud. Eyeglasses.
Like a nice camera.
We can hear you.
A new phone.
Okay, bring it back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So before I tell you why I did that, I'm obsessed with this idea that this is not a system of constants. It's not a system of chances. It's a system of choices. And that the choices that people have made over the long haul are the things that like put people in the positions they are today. When you think about things like mass incarceration, I asked you to do that because in Virginia, theft over $200 is a felony. In Florida, theft over $300 is a felony. In both of those states, when you become a felon, you permanently lose the right to vote. That is a choice. So wanted to talk about like some of the small ways or like, we organize around like the loud trauma. So the louder the trauma, the bigger the organizing. But there's all this quiet trauma that people don't know. Like people don't know that theft over $200 is a felony, and that's pretty low. In Oklahoma, up until 2001, theft over $50 was a felony. That is a choice. And like, what does it mean when we set up a system that like, again, if I ask you what's a felon, most people say these like heinous things, but it's like, there are a lot of people in jail for like not what you thought they were. And like Sam, we were going back and forth over some stats. And Sam was like, DeRay, did you know that we arrest more people for weed than all violent crimes combined?
A plant. Yeah.
It's like, that is nuts. So that's my news. My news is like system of choices. Sorry.
Discuss.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm just sort of responding in the moment, but I think it is wild when you think about the history of how those choices are made, right? Not only is it a system of people in positions of power making choices to criminalize particular things or to defund particular things and invest in other things, but those choices are made, most of those choices happened a long time ago. I mean, we think about how racist the choices are being made now. Like, the choices were being made by people even more racist before us. And that's when these laws were made. That's when the $300 thing was made. The rule in Florida around you lose the right to vote for the rest of your life, that was made in 1868. 1868. Why was it made in 1868, right after the Civil War? Well, because black people got the right to vote. And when black people started voting, it turns out that there were more registered black voters in Florida at that time than white voters. And so the white people in charge in the state legislature came together and they adopted a constitutional amendment that prohibited you from ever being able to vote if you were convicted of a felony. And at the same time, they passed a package of black codes. So we talk about black codes in part of the Jim Crow era. They passed a package of black codes that specified, that made the choice to call particular things felonies that black people were more likely to be arrested for. And that's the law that's on the books today. That's why there's 1.6 million people in Florida who can't vote. That's why 40% of black men in the state of Florida have been permanently banned from voting. In the state of Florida, I mean, we talk about the importance of political power. Florida is the epicenter of that. That's where the presidency is decided. It's where 2 Senate seats, you got the governorship. All of that is influenced by this law to this day.
Sam just said something that just blew my mind. And it wasn't the stats. It's just that I just realized that this is the least racist moment ever.
You can, I mean, if you go back like 2 years ago, you could make the argument.
I don't know if that's
a little bit better.
Is that what Sam said?
I don't know about the least, but you are right that it has been worse than what we've got now.
But I mean, it's
I love
just
that was your takeaway. I was like, where's Remember going with this?
With the exception
I also
of
thought
this
was thinking the same
administration,
thing.
I think you could make
I
the
just
argument.
I just these things that are still upheld. It just kind of blows my. I mean, there's just so much racism to undo.
Yeah.
That sometimes it's just it's like a puzzle. And you're just and all the pieces are light blue. You're like, I don't even know how to put this together. There are no end
That was
pieces.
good.
I don't even know where to
that.
start.
I like
which
that.
is the work y'all are doing.
But honestly, that's what gives me hope, right? I think about 2 things often. 1, that this is not the worst our country has ever been in. And 2, that our ancestors did far more with far less. That is literally why I'm able to sit here and have this conversation with you all, right? So yes, things have been bad. Yes, there are things that have been around for a long time that we are still working to dismantle.
Yeah.
And yet the fact that we have made even the amount of progress that we have is because of the determination of folks who are fighting against even more and had fewer resources to do it. So if anything, it is a reason to hope and to continue the work.
I agree.
Well, we're going to transition now to talk to Touré. Woo! Love you, news people. Take your shoes. Take your shoes.
Don't go anywhere. More Pod Save the People's coming. This episode is brought to you by Burrow.
Let's talk furniture, Duray. Couches are either cheap and flimsy or heavy and expensive. I have not experienced any others until now. They're hard to move, complex to put together, and never both stylish and durable.
You're right. And, I moved a lot. I remember buying my very first couch, that I actually bought as, an adult. And I, spent way too much money, and it wasn't, that comfortable, but I was like, I'm buying a couch. And I wish I had known of companies like this that from style to shipping, functionality to adaptability, Burrow has just really reinvented the luxury couch that actually looks and feels good. And there's just not a lot of them around.
I agree. We've moved whole houses across the country and it's always complicated, but I'm really excited about Burrow because their couches assemble and disassemble in just minutes with no tools. No tools. No complicated instructions. It's just one less thing to stress about when you're moving or buying a new and important piece of furniture.
And the no tools thing seems like it's magic, but it's 2018. A lot of things can happen. And style matters because when you buy a couch and you're trying to make sure it works and fits, and I remember buying my first couch and it, again, I thought it looked cool, then I got it and was I just spent a lot of money on this thing that doesn't really feel great either. With this, you can customize your Burrow sofa to fit your personality. Color options, you can choose the armrest height. It's really comfortable and it's adaptable. So if your space changes, the modular design actually allows it to move and grow with you.
I like that it's high quality, but not super expensive. And all Burrow furniture is shipped fast, and shipping is free. How do you have free shipping on a couch? And you know, I have kids, and Burrow offers stain-resistant fabric, also good for messy pets or pets with claws.
And here's the thing, it's 2018. My favorite part of the couch, besides it being cool and modular and like not needing, materials like tools to set it up. My favorite part is the built-in USB charger. So you can like charge your phone. It's just built into the couch. Think about all the times you've been sitting on the couch and you're like, I need to charge my phone. And here, it's already there. You can enjoy 30 days of cozy on your Burrow risk-free, or try out Burrow.com at one of their showrooms today.
For $75 off your order, that's $75, visit burrow.com/people.
That's BURROW.com/people for $75 off your purchase. Burrow makes the luxury couch for real life. This episode is also brought to you by the movie The Post. The Post is the untold true story of the Pentagon Papers cover-up and the journalists who worked to expose the truth. Academy Award nominee for Best Picture and certified fresh from Rotten Tomatoes. It's from director Steven Spielberg and stars Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks. It's The Post. Watch on Blu-ray or rent tonight.
Give it up for Touré.
What's up, y'all?
Hello, Touré.
Hi, DeRay. How are you?
I'm going to read from my little card. Touré is a writer, producer, commentator, father, and husband based here in New York. He has two adorable kids. How old are Hendrickson?
10 and 9, and DeRay, in case you're wondering, is a fantastic uncle and babysitter. And if you need all-day baby care, he's the best.
I had Hendrix for a whole day, and at the end, we're like coming back. I tweet like, I'm with the 9-year-old all day. What can we do? And people on Twitter are amazing. Like Riverside Church literally opens up the top of the church. They're like, you can come do a tour of the bells. I was like, that was great. Went to the math museum, great museum for kids if you care about math. He really liked it.
He took my 10-year-old to Soho House.
I did. We went to Soho House for lunch.
It was great.
You've seen him on TV. He's been a writer for longer than I've been alive. And kidding.
No, thank you.
But I wanted to have a conversation with you about where we are in this moment with the media. But before we start there, you've done a ton of like really cool interviews. You have a podcast that'll be here in the Podfest too, so you're still doing cool interviews. Can you talk about an interview you'll never forget that you did?
Oh my God, so many.
You did that R. Kelly interview.
Well, you want to talk about R. Kelly? You want to talk about Kanye?
I'm just saying. Do you remember the R. Kelly interview he did? No?
Wow, this is great. Like every 5 years needs to hear the R. Kelly story anew. It keeps coming back. Y'all will see online the interview. Somehow BET has scrubbed all but 1% of the interview from you think the internet never forgets? They forgot most of my R. Kelly interview, but this part remains. He had just come off of his trial for sexual assault, which he somehow got off on, even though everybody in the world had seen this videotape. This was before the internet really was a big deal. Everybody had seen this videotape where he was having sex with several girls, and in the final one, he urinated on her. We saw that on the tape. Turns out people remember this, right? She was like 16 years old, and he went to trial. He got off on the trial. So BET had me sitting with him for an hour in a nice Chicago hotel. And the core moment, I wanted to ask him, do you like underage girls? Like, can you look me in the eye and tell me, no, I don't like underage girls? And I had like a 3-question arc that I was going to hit him with. No gotcha question, but we're just going to walk through like easy question, a little bit harder, right? And the first question was, do you like underage girls? Right?
Easy.
You would think it was easy, but it was tricky because interviewers, like, just tinkering with words can make a huge difference. One word is a huge difference in 2 different questions. And we'd been talking about underage girls, and he'd been trying to locate it around 14, 13-year-olds. Like, no, I don't like 14-year-olds. That's disgusting. How dare you ask me that? So I asked him, do you like underage girls? Like, straight up. And his crisis manager, this guy in this suit, right, came running from the other room. No, you can't ask him that. And R. Kelly said, no, I got this. I want to answer this question. So, well, you're the client. No problem. So he sits down. He's done.
He's like, I did my job.
Right. So I start to ask him, do you like underage girls? But at the last second, something said, If I say underage, he will go, no, I don't like 14-year-old girls. And that will be the end of that. So at the last second, I said, teenage girls. Do you like teenage girls? Much harder question for him. And he says, what you mean by teenage? And you can see like the sweat starting and the drool starting. And it's like that Robert Townsend moment, right? When he's like, don't mention drugs unless you got some, right? Or Hollywood Shuffle. So
I missed that one.
And I said, girls who are teenagers. Like, that's what we mean. And apparently I made a face because when they said, like, what do you mean teenage? Because, like, I couldn't walk down the street after it aired without somebody, oh my God, your face when R. Kelly said. And I was trying to let him know that he had not said something stupid, even though I knew he had said something really stupid. And yeah, that interview lives forever. You could see that piece online, and you'll see that I'm changing at the last second from the underage to teenage. But I mean, there's been a lot of fun stories.
I don't think I know the Kanye interview. Do I know the Kanye interview?
I don't know. So there's multiple Kanye stories within one long day with Kanye. I'll give you the second story, which is dope. Do you want to hear both the stories, or you want to hear
Tell us the...
Yes. Yes. All right. So first album, Rolling Stone sends me out to Jersey to talk to Kanye. He's living in Jersey in like a high rise, but he's on like the 18th floor, not the top floor.
When was this? Was his mom alive?
First album.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Mom's alive.
Okay.
Dr. Don. I talked to Dr. West for the story. She was lovely. She was brilliant. She talked about that she spoiled him, that she worshiped the ground he walked on. So the ego that you see began from this single mother, single child relationship where she was like, you can do anything, which is great. It's great. I fully applaud her giving him that confidence because nobody was with it. Jay-Z was like, you're the producer. You can't rap. Dame Dash was the one like, no, we need to listen to him. The first album, Jesus Walks, is on the radio. I get to his place in Jersey, and he's still taking like an hour to get dressed. Like, which polo shirt? I can't figure it out. So I'm walking around his apartment, which might have been as big as this place here, and I see there's a poster on the wall, like about this size, which is him in performance like this. And so when he finally comes out, all load out, I'm like, why do you have a poster of you on the wall in your house? And he actually said something really brilliant. He said, I need to cheer for me before anyone else can cheer for me. Right?
Look at that Kanye wisdom.
Brilliant, right?
That was early Kanye wisdom.
Early Kanyeism. And you see the beginning of the megalomaniacal Kanye that we have now, but the planting
Details.
of deep self-belief was happening on a conscious level, and I fully support that. I would not encourage you to put an actual poster of yourself on the wall in your house, but like do it in your mind, right? Like you, like be a big fan of yourself. So that moment happens, but then he's also showing me his new Jesus piece, right? And I'm the first one outside the family to see the Jesus piece. And Jesus Walks is on the radio where he's like, Jesus is black, but we'll talk about that later. But this Jesus has all the colored stones from Jacob the jeweler. And the eyes are like blue, like the sneakers, right? And the hair is clearly blonde. And he's like, look at my chain, $20,000, isn't it great? And I'm like, I thought you thought Jesus was black.
You said that?
Oh, no doubt. Like, what? Like, of course.
And
so he's like, eh. So we go on through our day, and like 30 minutes later, he's like, you really think it looks like white Jesus? And I'm like out of nowhere. And then like another 30 minutes later, we're talking about something else. He's like, you really think it looks like white Jesus? Is this a problem? And I'm like, yeah, money, like, what are you doing? So he tells his manager, kill our next 3 meetings. We're going to Jacob the Jewelers. We're going to change this thing. So we go to Jacob the Jewelers.
You went with them?
No doubt.
Oh my God.
No doubt.
I love it. They had you for the whole day.
So we're up in Jacob the Jewelers, which is right across from Fox News on 6th Avenue. I think it's 40th Street or whatever. And
never been there. I can't afford anything from Jacob.
On the second floor, I know you know. You stay up in there.
This is as much jewel as I got.
And Jacob brings out all the colored stones, and he's like, whatever we can do to please you. But you can't just take out the blue eyes and put in brown, and it doesn't work. So he's like, okay, I'm going to call it Grandma's Jesus. I'm like, no, man, that's whack. So So fine. So we go, he's like, I will come back and make another one that is clearly a black Jesus. He's all right, whatever. So we go through our whole day and we end up in the Maybach outside tiny Keene College in New Jersey, where he's gonna do a show. And we're sitting in the Maybach and then he sees like 40 yards away, oh, there's Jay-Z's Maybach. Let's go talk to Jay. And I had done a bunch of stories with Jay at this point, so we had a professional relationship. So Kanye runs over and jumps in the front seat. And of course, I'm not missing this. Kanye talking to Jay. So I'm running right behind him, and I'm like right in the window of the back seat. Like Jay's like there, and I'm like, what's going on? Like total like little brother, like what's happening? So I'm like practically leaning into the car so I can hear everything, and Kanye's in the front like, yo, check out my chain. And there's this really beautiful woman who music industry folks will know was also there. And he's like,
that was like, I don't know her.
It comes up. It comes back. So Kanye's like, check out my chain, y'all. And Jay's and the woman are like, oh yeah, that's hot. That's what's up. And then I say, but it's white Jesus.
Awful. Like, you're supposed to be recording the story. You are part of the story now.
No. See, yes. And for profile writers, it is okay to occasionally instigate a little bit. The first 10 years of my career, I was super fly on the wall. I would have never done that. And I'm like, Dream Hampton's stories are so hot. Why are her stories hotter than mine? Because she was not afraid to instigate some and be part of the story. So I'm like, so then I started to grow to be more like that. So then I was like, yo, that's white Jesus. And immediately Jay flipped and the lady flipped and they were like, oh yeah, that's whack, man. The girl is like, you need to tuck that in. And there's nothing worse than getting dissed by a beautiful woman. And she's like, yeah, you need to tuck that stuff in. So, that was the crux of the story. And I haven't talked to Kanye since. He's like, later for you, money.
How have you seen celebrity change over you were a reporter sort of before the internet, and now you're a reporter in the internet age. I guess you were around when the internet, I don't know. You're a little older than me.
I was around before the internet. Thanks, DeRay.
How have you seen it change since you've had a front row
when we
seat?
were riding dinosaurs, they were... I mean, I'm not sure that I can suggest a broad sort of change, but I mean... A lot of people are much more able to take hold of their fame and control of the message of their fame and sort of push out themselves and their image and what they want versus before you were much more at the mercy of the media. I mean, I was talking to Nas about his first album and it was like a photograph in the 90s was massive because most people didn't get to see you outside of a photograph. Videos were played some, but not a ton, especially for hip hop. For a Nas to get an interview in 94, 95 was, on a major net, was very, very difficult. So there were moments when you could suggest who you were. Now, you can push yourself out all the time. I just think the arc of things goes much faster. Think about the world for Killer Mike 2 weeks ago, right? Right? I mean, in the past, just the whole opportunity to do a horrendous interview on NRA TV and then do a pathetic apology on Facebook and then get roasted on Twitter, that was just not there before. And now all of this exists as part of what we think of Killer Mike. But everything moves so fast that in a month from now, we'd be talking about, remember that thing, Killer Mike? You'd be like, I can't remember. So many things have happened since then.
And the last question is, what is it like to be a journalist in the age of Trump?
I feel a great responsibility to be in the mix and saying what I think, and yet I feel a great exhaustion, and I feel quite often, there's something that journalists say, all the takes are taken. Something happens and every angle of this has been already deconstructed by everybody. So what are you gonna add? If think about something that even just Trump in general. I could write an essay about how racist he is, but everybody has said that from every possible angle. All the takes are taken. So then what do you have to add when everybody's already said it? But I feel a great responsibility as those of us who have a voice to continue banging the gong, continue to saying this is not normal, this is racist. Be outraged, resist, don't relax. I feel like people at some point will, not even left and right, we are all siloed out, but there's a middle that is fungible, that could go either way, that will say, this is too stressful. Whatever his policies, it's too stressful. Every time you go to the movies, you come out and you're like, oh my God, did the world blow up while we were watching Black Panther again? And
Are we Russia? Is it North Korea?
Right, is Russia here? Did he have an affair in the Oval Office, like right in front of the cameras? Or what stupid thing did he say? You wake up and you're stressed out about what's he going to tweet? And there will be a sliver of people that will say, we can't have this anymore. It's just too stressful. And they'll vote, and because he only won by a sliver. He acts like it was a landslide. We don't need to convince Trump voters that they are wrong, right? We need to excite people on our side and make them see there is something of value for you in coming out to vote for whoever the Democrats put out, and there's value for you in this, and not just against him, but this is what we're offering. Because I feel that the Republican Party, I know what they're offering. I know what they're about. I don't know what the Democratic Party is about. The Republican Party wants to lower your taxes, to stop immigrants from coming, continue to ignore climate change. What is the Democratic Party really about? Like, what are we giving the constituents? What are we giving the voters? And that question needs to be clear if we're going to win an election.
Boom. Give it up for Teray. And before you go, if you could just take 2 seconds while you're leaving and introduce yourself to the person next to you. We believe that the pod is also a family. And part of the beauty of being in a family is that you know people and that you can lean on them later. So meet the people next to you. Say hi to one person. We'll meet you out and to the left. Cool. Bye, y'all.